My name is Amarachandra, if we haven't met, and if this is your first time at Dharma night, what we'll do is we'll just do a short arriving meditation. I'll just lead through a little bit, and then I'm going to introduce us to the sixth distinctive emphases of Triratna, and I'll need some input from everyone else around the 5 other ones that we've missed. Then we have a tea break, and then we have groups to talk about different aspects of what might have been said, and then we have a meditation at the end. So that's our overview. So we'll just have a short arriving meditation to start with, just 7 or 8 minutes. Great, so some of us have been transforming ourselves in the course, and then on Dharma night you've been looking at this. You've been looking at what makes Triratna, which is the Buddhist tradition that is here in the Cambridge Buddhist Centre. What makes Triratna Triratna? What makes it? What's the particular emphases of Triratna? And there are 6 particular emphases of Triratna, but lots of us have missed out what they are. So help us get into the first 5. So what are some of the, call them out, what are some of the emphases, what are some of the things that you've looked at over the last 5 weeks to help us out?
Right livelihood. Right
livelihood, yeah. So how we earn our living, how we are in the world. Great, thank you, Kashadeva.
Going for refuge.
Who said that one? Going for refuge. What the centrality of going for refuge, the way that Triratna puts going for refuge right at the centre of our spiritual practice. It means that we kind of can feel unified with the whole of the Buddhist tradition, in a way. Thank you.
Spiritual friendship.
Spiritual friendship. Thank you. So the importance of Sangha, the importance of having friends. We do need friends. Having friends to tread this path with. Friends that sneak in from sneaky corners.
It's always me.
It's not always you. It's all right, great. Hi, Joe. So friendship's important. We can't do... Actually, I can't practice the Dharma life on my own. I do need a community to practice with, and we reflect each other back where we shine, but also, where we can, where our weak points are, and how we can sort of grow and develop together. And it's great to have people who know you over years and years and years. And we grow together. So yeah, spiritual friendship. Thanks, Jules.
Unity of Buddhism. Unity, so bringing people together. So whatever gender.
Whatever gender.
That's a separate one. And non-sectarianism is another one.
Yeah, that's right. So the unity of Buddhism. This sort of like this. Sangharakshita, who's the founder of the Triratna Buddhist movement and order, was ordained as a Theravadan monk, had Buddhist teachers, also had Zen teachers, and he had a very strong sense right from his early involvement reading Buddhism that Buddhism was unified. You could find a unified teachings throughout Buddhism, even though they expressed themselves really differently. So the unity of Buddhism, and that in a way that we're in a unique historical position because we've got that sort of sense of history, and we can look at the whole of the Buddhist tradition, sort of the huge geographical spread of Buddhism, but also over the long period of time, and we can draw out some of the key teachings. So thank you, Dhammachandra. Okay. So that's the unity. Then the last one, K2 Raja, where are you?
The unified order.
The unified order. So what's that?
So it's that at the heart of Triratna community is an order which welcomes everyone. There's one order, one ordination, and everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
Who wants to come into relationship with that.
Perfect, great, thank you very much. So, so at the heart of Triratna is the Triratna Buddhist order, and those of us, some of us mightn't be wearing our cases, but those of us with our cases on have been ordained into one order. So there's not a separate order for men and women. There are no additional rules to take on for anybody. It's an equal ordination, which back in 1968 was completely radical. And luckily, thank goodness, the world has changed and there are more equal ordinations happening. But men and women in the same order, and wherever you are in the world as an order member, you can be living with a family, you can be living in a community, in a retreat centre. You could be living, there's one brave order member in Russia trying to continue teaching in Russia and spreading the Dharma there. So there's one unified order, and you can live all these different lifestyles. You can live all over the world, speak different languages, maybe have different expressions sometimes. In Mexico, the Dharma centres are going to be a little bit different, a bit louder than, say, the sort of polite Cambridge energy, so it's going to be different, but it's one order. Great. And so then the sixth distinctive emphasis, what a mouthful, of Triratna is that we're encouraged to engage with the arts. So it's really unusual to have this as a part of spiritual practice, a part of our spiritual path. So I'm going to be looking at that a little bit. I've got a very old iPad. So first off, so I'm going to look a little bit at what is meant by the arts, Sangharakshita and beauty, and his links between Buddhism and art, and then what that means for us. So firstly, I have a bit of an issue with this term, the arts. Oh, it sounds so sort of elitist and pompous. So I don't sort of really like it. Sounds a bit outdated, and it's going to be sort of poetry, Byron and Shelley and I don't know, Aristotle and what's the name of a Greek playwright? Anyhow, Homer, and it's going to be too much for me. I'm a girl from the dusty plains of New South Wales. Can I cope with the arts? So we've got this traditional list, but in a way, Sangharakshita does mean that a little bit, because that's the kind of guy he is. He is a man from that era. He does really appreciate romantic poetry and fine art and the Delphic oracle and Greek tragedy and classical sculpture. He does really, really enjoy all that. But I wonder what we might put in. Hey, Julia. What we might put into this list now. So I'm happy again to get some shout outs. What would you add to a list of the arts that mightn't be seen in a traditional list? Something funny?
Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino. Great. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Film. It could be Quentin Tarantino, but film, it's not in there. Great film. Photography. Yeah. Sebastian Salgado died recently. I don't know if people know him. He's such a beautiful photographer, beautiful man. Photography.
But the dance, modern dance.
Dance, exactly. Great, dance, all sorts.
Nature.
Thank you, Isabel. It's a bit left out from Sangharakshita's definition in here. I think if he was writing it today, he might include nature. I think he would include nature. We can go on and look at why that is. Yeah, nature. Yeah.
Architecture.
Ah, thank you. Architecture. Yeah, exactly. So we're expanding it out. Would some people include football? Let's just pull that back. You know, guerrilla gardening, circus performance, you know, like really fantastic acrobatics, you know, in a really sort of beautiful way. And who's included? You know, who's included in this list? Is Lady Gaga included? Is she in the arts? What about Bowie? You know, where's our biases here? Sonic Youth, you know, what about them? Tracy Emin, is she included? And what about Banksy? He sells for a lot of money, but is he the arts? Yeah? And what about my excellent iPhone photography? Does that get included? You know, how do we sort of make our definitions? So in a way, I suppose I'm sort of leading to what's Sangharakshita trying to get to here? What's he trying to get to with this idea of the arts? So he is a man of his time. In fact, he's a little bit of a man of the previous time. So we'll just look, he's got a definition of art. So for Sangharakshita, art is the organisation of sensuous impressions into pleasurable formal relations that expresses the artist's sensibility and communicates to the audience values which can transform their lives. So the organisation of sensuous impressions into pleasurable formal relations. So he's putting a sort of emphasis there on pleasurable formal relations. In a way, he kind of means beautiful as well, beautiful formal relations. And so that the artist's sensitivities can have an effect on people and can transform their lives. So that's what he means by art. So he may not quite mean my photographs. So he's got here both the aesthetic and the transformative potential of art. And in there is aesthetics, so the sort of, you know, aesthetics which can be about beauty and taste. Yeah.
But doesn't have to be pleasurable or beautiful in order to transform.
That's true. Well, that would be my question, and I think we'll look at it. Yeah, because some art isn't always beautiful, is it? But then again, there might be a beauty to it. It mightn't be directly beautiful, but then what you find beautiful, I might not find particularly beautiful. Yeah. So, and what's the nature of the transformation that we're looking, that he's sort of suggesting? Is it any kind of transformation? Or is it leading in a particular way? Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so I had in my notes, should we include nature in this definition? And Isabel has already done that work for me. So I'm going to sort of draw a bit from a very old essay, The Meaning of Buddhism and the Value of Art. It's from 1956. It's a long time ago, isn't it? Sort of, it's like, it's nearly 70 years ago. Yeah. So Sangharakshita starts with this, sort of talking about Buddhism being based on the expansion of consciousness. And he says that we can test Buddha's teachings because, and he says, does it lead to, and we're going to read out the list because I thought it was really beautiful. Does it lead to an expansion of consciousness, an illumination of the mind, the purification of the heart, spiritual sharp-sightedness, emancipation from the fetters of egotism. I'll read that again. Expansion of consciousness, illumination of the mind, purification of the heart, spiritual sharp-sightedness, I like that one, and emancipation from the fetters of ego. Yeah, what a lovely list. So he's sort of encouraging us to think about Buddhism and the expansion of consciousness in this way. And he talks about this taking place in two ways. One is through sort of a greater insight and I guess integration, which would be more wisdom. And then he talks about it as sort of horizontal, he calls it, more and more empathy and understanding. So he would sort of call that compassion. So these are the two aspects that he's thinking of with the development of sort of expansion of consciousness, is wisdom and compassion. But also in there is our own acts, our own sort of ethical acts in there. So we'll look at that as well. Yeah. So he says, we will not greatly err if we live a life that's dedicated to the expansion of consciousness through the development of wisdom and compassion, and find in this the ultimate meaning of Buddhism. So it's 1956. It's got some old language, but there's some really beautiful bits in there. And then he quotes an old art historian, Herbert Reed, talking about the function of art is to stretch the mind beyond the limits of understanding. So to stretch the mind beyond the limits of understanding, and in a way that's got a lovely correlation with what Buddhism is trying to do with the expansion of consciousness. Music, drama, poetry, all these sorts of creative pursuits have the possibility to do that, don't they? To evoke sympathy and empathy, and to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to see the world through someone else's perspective. I mean, it's a very minor example, but maybe someone here was in a talk I gave, but I think it was on the weekend retreat. I was looking at a particular, there was a Cézanne exhibition about 2 years ago, a year ago, and I was looking at this painting which I knew really well, and I was looking at it, and I'd been around, and I was sort of taking in his, the way he paints, and engaging with works that I really loved. And so I was sort of in the Cézanne zone. I sort of attuned to his, looked at his brush strokes and his wobbly tables and the apples sort of about to roll off the table because of his sort of changes in perspective. And I was standing looking, and there was a pot, and it had, on its curve, it just had a bright part on the curve that he'd painted in. And I went, oh, okay, the window is there. And then I was like, oh, and something sort of really, really opened up. And I'm like, oh, I'm standing where he was standing. I'm seeing the room from his point of view. And everything just shifted. My sort of consciousness just really, really opened. And there I was. I'm like, oh God, I felt like I was in the room. I was in the room that Cézanne was painting, and I felt like I was really there. It just shifted my my perspective in that sort of way. I don't know if other people get these sorts of things, but it could be that. But it could be that you're reading a novel, and it's about someone's life, and you would never lead that life. And then you get it. You go, oh, that's what it's like to be in that situation. So it sort of opens up a sort of empathy. We all know these sorts of things. Yeah. So Buddhism and art can both expand and extend our consciousness. Buddhism by acting directly on our understanding and our actions, our will, our intention, and art through engagement with beauty. So for Sangharakshita, because it's about a refinement and an expansion of consciousness, consciousness is a very subtle and nuanced and even vulnerable quality, isn't it? It's, if things are too harsh, it cuts through that sort of that sensitivity of consciousness. So beauty is in there, not just any art for any sake. And to be discussed. Yeah, and I think one of the things for Sangharakshita was that he could see when he was sort of living his life, he could see that we had in the modern world, we were really over-relying on our intellect. we were sort of far more engaged with our intellectual pursuits, and sort of he would be, you know, he would see it even more and more. We're more and more in our heads, and our emotional selves are being a bit squashed, and in fact even sort of flattened, and we're not really in touch sometimes with our emotional lives. I think we've made progress in that, probably from 1960s Britain, where it was a sort of stiff upper lip and, you know, don't show too much emotion. But we're more and more in our heads and more on our screens. So we're also even more and more out of touch with our sort of physical body. Yeah, so our physical body, which holds, you know, all our emotions, our responses to things, can make us feel well or unwell. We're sort of less and less in touch with our sort of felt sense of being a sort of fully rounded 3D human being with a sort of a mind and a body, and they're not separate at all. But we emphasise the mind, and I don't know if that's more in places like Cambridge, where, you know, we've often put a lot of work into developing our minds and having careers that have narrowed us down to particular sort of thinking. Yeah. Yeah, Sangharakshita says it's sort of like a scientist working on working on mapping out the stars and the galaxies, and that sort of great work, but coming home and watching really, really rubbish TV and having bad sex. He doesn't quite say bad sex, but I'm going to, you know. It's like the delicacy of sort of all that intellectual work, but you come home and you're exhausted, and you're not taking that same refinement of mind then into what you're doing in your ordinary life, in your off time. And so you just sit down with whatever's going on, or you're scrolling, and you're not really engaged outside of work or outside, you know, in certain areas of your life anyhow. So that's how he sort of, well, that's one way that he almost characterises it. I might have added a bit or gave it a particular emphasis. Yeah. So we've got art to expand our experience and broaden our sympathies. So that is compassion. So we've got sort of novels, poetry, film that can do these things. And I was reading an article by Simon Cooper in the weekend paper just the other week actually, and he was saying he decided he gave it. I don't know if anyone else reads Simon Cooper. Yeah, he's great, isn't he? He had the 7 habits of so the 7 intellectual habits of the best thinkers. I thought, yes, let me read this. But he said the first one was read books. He said a book is still the best technology to convey the nuanced complexity of the world. The complexity is a check on pure ideology. People who want to simplify the world will prefer online conspiracy theories. So then he goes on, and the next one is don't use screens too much. Back to books. So he's really sort of saying, yeah, books, you know, books, novels, things that expand our empathy and sympathy, take us away from ourselves. But also there's a quality of slowing down, isn't there, when you're reading a novel, taking in the language that's being used, and sort of really, appreciating the art of the novelist. So he was sort of saying read books. But yeah, we've got this here. Art helps us expand our experience and broaden our sympathies. So, just aware of the time. I don't think I need to say too much about this really, because we know it. We know that's what good art can do. Good art can do, and it can cross boundaries, can't it? You know, one of the films that I love the most is called A Separation, and it's an Iranian film, and it's about a divorce. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful film. and I don't have to be in that culture to really be immediately put into that world. Yeah, so you know, we know these things already, but it's good to just reflect on them. It takes us sort of out of ourselves. I mean, Rembrandt's self-portraits can do that as well, can't they? You stand in front of Rembrandt's self-portraits and you're really taken into his reflection on himself. You know, when he's a young man and he's got his arm leaning on the pedestal and he's, you know, here I am ready to go in the world. And then sort of by the end of his life, it's so soulful, his portraits of aging and being an old man. He's got these great gold chains around him, you know, of status. But that doesn't stop the aging process. It doesn't help him with death coming sort of towards him. You know, and he did many self-portraits. And his other portraits as well are so beautiful. They really take you into someone, and you sort of feel sort of who are they, and you know, what's going on with their life. He paints the human frailty with all its sort of beauty, but with that sense of time passing and our foibles. So art also then it enlarges our imagination. So we can, you know, taking us away from facts and figures into sort of something bigger. I really like, or I used to like a lot more, but I haven't watched television that much, Brian Cox, the scientist, sort of, I don't know what he is, galaxy scientist, sorry. I'm sitting up the front here, I haven't quite got the word. Thank you. He's a physicist. Thanks, Sarah. He's a physicist. But I really love watching him because he's got all the awe and wonder of what he's talking about. He sort of brings it to life. You feel like he's going to step into something. He's like, it's so wonderful, it's amazing. And I sort of open up and sort of lean into his world as he tells me about the magic of the cosmos and the mystery of it, and how we're influenced by it, and we can't really quite conceive it, but he wants us to try. It's really, really beautiful. So it sort of extends our imagination, can put us in perspective, can't it? Sometimes we can be the centre of the world, and then you can sort of shift out and sort of see things from a bit bigger perspective. One famous image is of the world, the Earth from space, from that one of those early moon space explorations. They sent back this image of the world in space, and no one had ever seen that before. This beautiful blue-green planet. And we were looking back at ourselves in a way that we'd never had the capacity to do it before. And the people who've seen it, they saw the fragility of this planet sort of suspended in space, so beautiful and so vulnerable in a way. And then they shared that with us. So, you know, these images, they expand our imagination. And then art refines and redirects our emotions. So the other one, enlarging our imagination, is a kind of wisdom part, sort of see things differently. And then we're back to how we sort of transform our actions, transform ourselves from our ethical point of view, our ethical lives. How are we in relation to ourselves and to the world? So it can redirect, it can help us redirect and refine our emotions. This is really important, actually, isn't it? To learn how to be more quiet, to learn how to pay attention, to learn how to sort of be with something and explore it. Music is great, isn't it? Music is great for this because you can't hold on to it. So there's a difference, isn't there, when you're listening to a piece of music that you know really well. And so it's like, okay, the good bit's coming up. You're sort of really with it. And that can be really fantastic. But when you're listening to some music that you don't know so well, I'm really tuning in. It's like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next. And so then I might be even more open. I've got to be really, really open, really, really listen. I drift off, come back. Really listening to the music, letting it have its effect on me, because I don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah. So music is, you can't hold on to it like you can with a sort of, a piece of art that you can see, or a film that's unfolding. Poetry you can read again and again and again, can't you? And let the feeling of behind the work of art sort of transform us, open us up emotionally. Because that's what we need to do, don't we? We need to find more ways to open our heart up to the world and be in the world, but with more empathy, more sensitivity, and more relation, and more wisdom as well. Another artist I really love is Bill Viola. Some people might know Bill Viola, the video artist. Do people know Bill? Yes. He died last year, I think. Another sad loss for the world. But he's done some really fantastic works. One of them was 5 Angels for the New Millennium in 2000. And there were 5 big video screens, and you'd see them in this enormous room. Sometimes the room would have little snippets, so you couldn't see the screens all at the same time. But the sound he records, he might record wind or water. And so the sound is really muffled, but then he slows it down and then he sort of speeds it up. And the video itself is often very, very slow, and then right at the end it will speed up. And I remember being at the 5 Angels for the New Millennium, and I'd be watching one of the big screens, and then I'd hear something at the back, because nothing hardly was happening. It's like, oh. And then I'd go across, and then I'd hear, and I'd go, it's like, oh, it's happened over there. Oh, I missed it. Oh, I'll start again. Oh, this one takes about 10 minutes. And then I'd hear it over there. It's like, oh, maybe I'll catch it over there. And I had to move around. No. Slow down. Be present. And each of them were fantastic. So I just really had to be there. And just be there in real time, watching things unfold. And I was with my twin sister, and we came out and we were walking around London. And she was describing her experience to me, which was similar to my experience. And I said, oh yeah, that's meditation. That's access concentration. We were completely present in our experience because you just had to wait. You had to be there. I think that's one of the great joys of his work, is you have to wait. He's done so many beautiful things, and I've been in full-blown dhyana with energy coursing through my body and bliss, completely in the moment, looking at his work, because you have to be there, and you have to wait for it to unfold, and you have to wait for things to emerge from his work. But all art is kind of like that, isn't there? You can read a poem, and then you read it again. And then you read it again, you go, oh, that's what they're trying to say. And you sort of try and you read it again. And the Dharma can be like that too. Some of the, some of the great Buddhist classics. Some of us are in Mitra study doing the Dhammapada. And we read it again, and then we read it again, and then we read it again. It's like, oh, that's what it makes sense. And it's in a kind of, it's not a verse form, but it's in a sort of way to help you remember it. And then, I hope you don't mind, but then somebody wrote a poem, and it sounded like the Dhammapada. So it was really beautiful. That form had an effect, and the words just sort of flowed through. So I know that there's people here who find themselves doing artsy, crafty things which they didn't used to do, or they've forgotten how they used to do them since they've started coming along to the Buddhist Center and being more involved with Triratna. So I think so Sangharakshita's emphasis on the arts is all in the service of helping us be better human beings, I think, but also to help us work on our minds. So I don't think he is talking about any kind of art. He's talking about art that really does open us up to more wisdom and more compassion, but also to reflect on the human situation and how we are in the world. I think as well, he also there's also something in there with helping us refine our minds. He came along, you know, he's in the 70s. He's with all these sort of young hippies, and I think he just wanted to help them refine their minds, get a bit of culture, and work on their minds in a different kind of way, because that's what we're trying to do in meditation, isn't it? We're sort of in meditation, we're trying to hold in with very subtle aspects of our experience. Watching the breath is an experience of being with something very, very changeable, very, very absolutely ungraspable, in a way really mysterious and not knowable. So, how do I hold in there? Is it like music? You know, being with the breath and being with music that is so beautiful, you just have to sort of be with it. Or am I sort of painting myself, you know, through a sort of an attention to the breath moving in my body, and then the metta bhavana, just helping us to open up to other ways of seeing the world, and sort of greater aspects of empathy, sympathy, compassion, standing in the world in someone else's shoes, learning how to love even the unlovable in us, as well as the unlovable that we sort of meet in the world that always needs to be transformed. It's my part to do the transformation and to look and see the beauty and be more and more appreciative. So I haven't brought in many nature examples, but we can get that all from nature as well. So it mightn't be that art is your way in. It might be that nature is your way in. I have a great friend, Maitri Devi, and I couldn't drag her to an art gallery, to you know, even into a Norman church as we pass, as we walk. It's like, Norman church? No, she's not interested. She's nature. And if you go to Tara Loka, you might go on one of her retreats, and she brings nature in really, really beautifully. But we would sit, we lived in community together, and we would sit in the back garden, and she could hear 25 different kinds of birds. And I thought, wow, she sees the world so differently in this moment to how I see it. I hear, you know, she's making the world. She's hearing different calls, knowing which birds are high, but you know, like she's seeing and being in the world in that moment, completely different to me. Like, that's interesting, isn't it? You know, it's like, wow, that's a change in perspective. So she's engaged with the natural world in a way that sort of is just way beyond my comprehension. So she sort of really opens things up in that way. And at Tara Loka, which is one of the women's retreat centres, they say we bring the people here and Tara Loka does the rest. And Kamala Sheila, a great meditation teacher from our tradition, who also has sadly died, he used to say that half the work of a solitary retreat is just getting people out in nature. So half the work is done by nature, by Tara Loka, just being outside, slowing down again, being with the beauty of the world Like there's so much beauty, but I'm stuck on my screen, or I'm doing my work, or I'm just being very utilitarian about things, and really narrow, caught in my head and my thoughts, and sort of squashed in my being. So Sangharakshita's invitation, I think, Triratna's invitation to us to engage more with the arts is to try and expand our sense of self, expand our sort of being, our consciousness, our empathy, and our appreciation. Yeah. So that is the final distinctive emphasis of Triratna. And there's one part that's about appreciation, but I think there's another part which is about getting creative ourselves. So we can have a reactive mind, we can have a creative mind. And I think the invitation is also there to get a bit creative ourselves. And as I was sort of saying a bit earlier, people tell me that they've written a poem. They haven't written a poem for 10 years or since they're in high school. And then the poem is beautiful, or they're writing music, or they've started doing some drawing, or getting out more in nature. You know, it can't just be about appreciation. It will lead to action as well. It will lead to us being more creative in our lives. And it mightn't be that you're going to get crafty. You mightn't be that person, but you might have some other way that you're going to be creative. Cooking, gifts for people, relating in different ways. How can we live a more creative, a more engaged life that's engaged with beauty and refining our minds? I think that's the invitation of this particular emphasis that Sangharakshita has given us. So thank you.